here we are, The Batman from the year 2022, not any of the other Batman films. This is our spoilers review.
I'm morally opposed to the spoiler review.
I don't know why. I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, just come back later. That's
It's
all.
only been out for 48 hours.
Who cares? It's why we say it's spoilers review. Everybody knows it's a spoiler. It was spoiling. The first thing I want to spoil about this, there's a lot to talk about in this masterpiece.
Yeah.
I do call it a masterpiece. I do think it is the best done Batman film by far.
I was very impressed.
Yeah, it does not have the emotional impact of the Nolan trilogy at all, though, to me. Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
This one film, which is 3 hours, I mean, you could almost say it's like two films, really. Does it is a masterpiece. It's incredibly well done to me. It is the best Batman movie in many ways. It does not pack the emotional punch that the other films do in terms of drama, like in Batman Begins, and even Dark Knight Rises was a mess, but even that one, the last half hour was so emotional. This does not even come close to that weight. And this also, and I'll talk more about this as we go on here, but I just want to say, do you feel that this movie felt like any of the other Batman films at all in terms of the size and the scale of it?
Yeah, that matched up for me just fine, but
Wow.
the treatment is so different. And it really kind of challenged my brain throughout the whole movie. I love the length, and it was never lacking for story at all. There was never any time where I sat there going, "What is going on?" or "I'm bored," or anything. It's just packed, chock full of story and action.
I think this was an extremely plot heavy movie,
Yeah.
but for the 3 hours, I would have enjoyed, and again, I'm calling it a masterpiece, but I really don't think we got to know the characters all that well. For the whole 3 hours,
I can see that.
I really just, it was plot. Every
Yeah.
time I thought we were going to have a little 5 minute breakaway where you see one of the characters not just dealing with the plot, but something to give a little more exposure as to who they are.
Yeah.
It never happened, ever. The Riddler was just doing his thing from the beginning. We never really got to pull away and kind of feel what his motivations were. They were revealed towards the end.
Yeah, slowly revealed at the end.
Yeah, but that okay. It was weird to not know where the Riddler was coming from and to not know really much of where Batman was coming from. There was a little bit, but not much. He just kind of started. I think the movie just starts. And usually that happens when they're trying to create a short movie and they don't want to have a lot of intro. And here was an extremely long movie, guys. It's almost 3 hours. And yet I felt like, Jesus Christ, at the 2 hour mark or so, I was thinking to myself,
plan your beverages accordingly.
yeah, and your piss time too. But I was really thinking by around the 2 hour mark, I thought, I still don't feel like I really know these characters all that well. I get the gist, but I didn't really feel them. Again, let me compare to Batman Begins. In Batman Begins, early on, I knew Bruce. They showed you what he was like as a kid and how he's carrying that into adulthood, and it was heavy. And I felt his essence as this kind of somewhat tortured soul. I don't think Christian Bale played him as well. I do think that this Robert Pattinson played him way more tortured. This is probably. This is probably the best acting for a Bat. I liked Affleck a lot too, but I would say Batman are getting better and better. I think Christian Bale, although he was trying to be tortured, and I think they really delivered his character, I think the more brooding was definitely this one, Robert Pattinson.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, really brooding throughout the whole movie. I also, by the way, I really liked that they didn't go with the Playboy millionaire.
I do too.
Right? They just took that out of the. I never understood why that needed to be in the mythos in the first place.
Right.
That he always had to be this playboy by day. I think back in the 1939 when Batman started, that was kind of important. Now it does not fit, and I'm glad that they made a conscious decision to just say, let's just throw that out. There's not even an attempt at Bruce Wayne being like a fun guy.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I like that. He's constantly brooding as both Bruce Wayne and as Batman. But yeah, I can't say enough. This did not feel like any other Batman movie. In a lot of ways, that's good. In a couple of ways, that's bad. Because he never felt like a big intimidating figure.
True.
And again, I never felt like I really knew any of the characters deeply. I got them in gist, but this was plot, plot, and more plot.
Yeah.
It never slowed down and let us really get to know anybody very well.
But lots and lots of story, complicated twists, and everybody like has a connection in different ways, and you slowly kind of figure it out as you go. It was a detective story
Yeah, that's another big
in a
one.
way.
You make a good point. The detective action was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
There were hints of it in other films, like little
Mm-hmm.
hints. You see a little bit here and there. This did it up. This
Yeah.
made him a detective.
Yeah.
And so I love the choices in terms of like what we're talking about, the detection, the being a detective so well, and making it so real. This whole thing felt so grounded. Not a plot hole in the whole movie that I can come up
Yes.
with yet.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe we'll find them later, but for now, so far, like I think of the Nolan trilogy as it takes itself so seriously, but it's filled with plot holes. Every time you turn around, there's a mess. There's just
Yeah.
some problem that like it can't play out like that. This I can't think of any.
No, this was very tightly sewn together.
Right?
Very
There's
impressed by
there's not
that.
a problem anywhere. There's not a well, she wouldn't have done that because of this. By the way, the reveal from Catwoman. Oh
Yeah.
God, that I didn't get that choked up in this movie very often. Not nearly as much as in the Dark Knight trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
but that was one of the probably three times when that I did get a little emotional when she told him when she confessed to Batman that her dad was
Selena.
when Selena told Batman that her dad was Falcone.
Yeah.
That was great. I'm so glad they carried that over from
Me
Long
too.
Halloween. I
Yes.
really love that. I think that's an important part of the whole mythos that usually just gets overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
No other version of her on film ever approached
No.
that, right? They never
Nope.
addressed it at all.
Right.
So this was great, and she handled it really well. I like her acting a lot.
Yeah, she was
Um,
great.
it's just this movie felt more like a TV movie. It in
Oh.
no
Hmm.
way felt. I mean, these costumes are very homemade looking,
Uh-huh.
which adds tremendously to the realism. And I've always wanted a Batman movie like this because I always
Yeah.
thought it doesn't make sense to me that Batman, Catwoman, and like the Riddler would have these outfits that look like they're corporately made, for like they're perfectly tailored and they look like a design team made them. That always pulled me out of the reality of previous incarnations of them. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe not so much in the Dark Knight trilogy, somewhat, but in the other films especially.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that, but it's at the expense of this never feels like a Hollywood movie. That's good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a cheap TV movie to me. It really does.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I mean it's incredibly well shot. Again, I want to preface
Yes,
this
amazing.
is a masterpiece movie. It is and it's a masterpiece Batman movie, but it's wildly lacking in the grandiose, intimidating nature. We're used to seeing Batman as a real figure, where he walks into a room and you go, "Oh my God, who's this?"
Right.
This movie takes place initially on Halloween night, and it takes place for 1 week from Halloween onward. And in that whole week, I don't ever get a notion of him as walking into a room and people going, "Oh my God, it's the Batman."
Right.
No one's scared of him at all. The cops
Yeah.
kind of laugh at him a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of interpreted this as this is a younger Batman. He's just kind of getting started, and he hasn't yet grown into that intimidating, confident figure
Yeah, I
yet.
agree.
That's the way, I don't know. That was my perception.
I think that's what they're going for.
Oh,
They didn't fail here, but what I'm saying
no.
is, I still came away from the movie going, that was great. However, I'm teed up from all these previous Batman films to
Mm-hmm.
think of Batman as a big, muscular, and intimidating. Not just big, like physically big. I mean, shot in a way where like the camera pans up to him
Yeah.
and you see like close-ups of his outfit being particularly badass.
Yeah.
The badassery here was really low.
Mm.
Like he kind of just felt like a guy in a Batman costume to
Hmm.
me. He kind of felt like just someone you'd see at a
Yeah.
costume party. He didn't really truly feel like the grandiose nature of Batman. And so again, it's not really a complaint because I think this is the better way to portray him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to go from Ben Affleck, who
Uh-huh.
was like he was so intimidating, and he was always shot in a way that was very very superhero. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think of this version as a superhero. I just think of him as a guy just trying to see what he can do.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we made enough
I
point about that, but
yeah, they for me they really struck like the perfect balance between this is a new treatment, this is a new way of interpreting the characters and the stories, but giving us enough of the familiar also.
hmm.
Um, I loved it.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was really incredible was when I was a kid, all we had was the 1966 movie and that campy TV show.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, that was a comedy. They actually made a comedy out of Batman and Robin,
Mhm.
and just basically it was a big spoof where they made fun of it. I always, and it was with all I guess the not really original, but the main villains, which are Riddler, Catwoman was a villain back then.
Mhm.
Riddler, Catwoman, Two Face was not on the show, but Joker, of course, and
Yeah.
Penguin, right?
Yes.
And I used to think, if you take these villains, the Rogues Gallery, and you do them seriously, like if you actually do Riddler, and the way I imagined was exactly what they gave us in this film, right? That's how I used to imagine Riddler was. Wouldn't he be like a dark, kind of dirty guy with just real incredible passion and psychosis for problems that are in Gotham and that he wants to fix, right?
Uh-huh.
And they gave us exactly that here. So this was my dream version of the Riddler. Like really, this is the Riddler I wanted since I was a kid. I
Mhm.
loved it. The Riddler was the best villain we've had yet in Batman, I think. Better than
Yeah.
Joker. Yeah, this was the best villain. Um, I probably could have done without the little Joker tease at the very end of the film. I just kind of felt like, come on, let's just have a movie without the Joker.
Mhm.
I don't usually like Penguin, but I think this version was very, very good, very true to the comic,
Yeah.
very well done. And again, Catwoman, it was kind of nice that they didn't make her like half villain, half. She was just a full blown heroine all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was cool too. So I love all those choices with the Rogues Gallery. I also loved the way that they were all interplayed together. That you could have that many of the Rogues Gallery as major parts of the film, and they didn't step on each other,
Yeah.
and they really worked well together there. Um, and one thing I would say for sure is that, going into this film for Matt Reeves and Pattinson and the whole crew, this is very tough because there's already so many edicts in place. Like you absolutely could not show Bruce's parents get killed again.
Yeah, I did notice that at some point in the movie. I went, "Wow, we haven't had a flashback," and that's kind of standard.
It's very standard, and I think
I'm not complaining.
it would have made the movie better. I know a lot of you are thinking, no, we've seen that enough. Right. In 2022, we have seen that enough in the past from other iterations.
Mm-hmm.
But 20 years from now, if someone watches this movie, believe me, it'll have more emotional impact if you could have had Bruce flashing back
Huh.
to his parents. For sure. It's a good tool to use. They couldn't use it because it's been done to death. No pun intended. Same with the costume. You kind of had to go with a less, complete costume here. I mean, it was complete, but it was very kind of basic and again handmade, and they had to do that to differentiate. There were so many reasons they were painted into a corner here
Mm-hmm.
that I'll bet if I'm Matt Reeves, I'm thinking there's a million other ways I want to do this, but I can't because it's already been done that way, and I want this to be different.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's a bit different than if this were the only Batman movie in existence.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, if there were no previous Batman versions, they could have taken advantage of some of those things.
Yeah.
And instead, they had to stay away from them. So that's tough because that's painting them into a corner right off the bat. But again, I really do still think this was a masterpiece, even though it did not have the emotional weight that I was personally hoping for. I will say towards the end, there were some really emotional moments. I think the most brilliant thing this Batman movie did that's never been done was the idea that throughout the whole film, it never really occurred to him to just be a hero. All he thought he was
Right.
vengeance.
Yes.
And I really love that when and throughout in the beginning when he says I'm vengeance,
Mhm.
we as an audience just think that he's just saying that just to be a dick in that moment. It's kind of like it's like, who are you again? Like, I'm me, fuckface. Like, don't worry about it. So when he says he's vengeance, we don't know that he's been saying that for 2 years. And then we find out because Penguin and Catwoman and everybody else are like, listen, vengeance.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was so clever. But then even better was at the end when he made that jump. If you remember, he cut the rope when Gotham had been flooded, and he fell down into the water deliberately so that he could go save those people.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh God, it just hit him. It just hit him. He realizes that he's just completely caught up in vengeance and stopping the bad guys, and it hit him now that you should go help the good guys.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. I thought that was brilliant. And another part of the comic mythos that I really love that they kept, and we'll wrap up here, is in the comics, depending which writer you're dealing with, usually crime increased because of Batman's arrival into Gotham. And here they showed you that too. That in the last 2 years, that crime actually had increased because of him. So in a way, he's part of the escalation. Anyway, we're out of time. Great movie, right?
Great.
Fucking great movie, guys. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know what you think is going to happen for a sequel. and what you thought. So we'll talk to you tomorrow.